Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show with appropriate social distancing. I'm Dr. Larry Burchett, ER doctor. I've got Teddy Luke,
That's right.
who is an ICU critical care nurse that I met at on a COVID floor ICU in Los Angeles. Teddy,
Yes, sir.
welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's good to see you. It's good to chat outside and at a distance. I want to point this stuff out. We're gonna get into so we're gonna talk about COVID. I wanted to get his feelings on it as a nurse, like what you think about it, what you've seen, patients you've taken care of, and what that's like
All right.
from the nursing side.
Yes, sir.
Because it's very different from what I see. I mean, you guys are really in that trench in a different way. I want to get into that. Teddy's unique. From D1 college football player
Yes.
from Texas.
Yeah.
I'm from Kansas, out of Texas.
Yeah.
Do they play football in Texas?
I was told that football was born in Texas, but that was that's what I was told. So.
A Texas football guy.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you became a nurse, how you got into nursing.
All right.
You've been doing that for a long time, and then
Been doing nursing for 8 years now. 8 years.
And then what your experience is. So we've got a bunch of things we can talk about. So that's what's on tap today for the show. Thanks for coming. Good
Yes,
to
sir.
see you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
So let's talk about you for a little bit. So you're from Dallas originally. Oh, and then let me say this: these are at least a foot apart. So there's 4 of them on the table, and then we're 6 feet apart. We're outside. He's being more respectful than I am, but I think we're outside with some wind. I don't think this is a significant. I think this social distancing counts. We're being mindful of Corona at this time, and this is the best we can do. I just want to point that out.
Absolutely.
So welcome to the show.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
So you're a Texas guy, huh? Dallas.
Yeah. So grew up in Dallas. Went to high school there. Went to college in Arkansas. And then moved to Nashville, Tennessee. So I'm currently living in Nashville, Tennessee, but I'm a traveling nurse, and so I'm currently out here in LA.
Came out to LA.
To LA.
Really for the COVID need is what contract was for you.
Yeah. This contract we met on was, well, that's not good.
It's all right. We'll keep rolling.
Yeah, the contract we met on was definitely for COVID.
Yeah.
But I've been in LA for another contract. I was out in San Jose, California. I was out there, and then COVID started picking up in California. And then, of course, with the hospital and staffing and low census, that contract got canceled. And that's how, and then when LA County got hit really hard with COVID, they needed to open a hospital for COVID, and that's kind of how I moved to LA, and that's how I ended up here.
How did you get into? So you were doing travel nursing, which is a big thing. Explain that a little bit to folks. Like, what is it, and what interested you to get into that?
So travel nursing is basically, so you have, I call it the marine of nurses, right?
Yeah.
Hospitals have needs for many different reasons, whether a bunch of the staffs are all on maternity leave at the same time, or whether they just have an influx of illness at a certain season, or they just have a shortage in hiring process. So to bring in experienced nurses who can cover the time gap between a new hire and between when the new hire is ready to be let go on the floor. So to hire these nurses from all over the U.S. who have license in each different state or in the state that they want to go to,
Mm-hmm.
and they work there for a period of time, anywhere from 4 weeks to 13 weeks. And if you like the area, you like the place, you can have an opportunity to extend longer. And so that's kind of how the concept of travel nursing works. So you go into a department, into a hospital, you kind of just jumped in and fill in where their gaps is. I personally, when I was in nursing school, when I met my girlfriend, who's now my wife, she wanted to travel all along. I didn't. And so she kind of started telling me about it and about the financial benefit and the experience and the new places and the new people. And I was like, okay, well, I love this girl. So I'm like, all right, yeah, cool, let's do it. And I got in and I liked it. It allows you to not stay in the same place, and you don't have to deal with the drama, so you just move on when things get, so I like that aspect of it. I like the change. what I really love about it though is your ability to learn from new people, new places, new situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you're a physician, you know, like every doctor has their way they want to do things.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that way is right or wrong. It just means that in their schooling, in their thought process, this is how they want it done. So it gives you ability to be easily flexible and easily adaptable to new situation, new places. That's why I call it the Marines of nurses.
No, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So this is really interesting that your wife originally had kind of the travel bug and was into that, and you started doing it because of her, and then you figured out you liked it, and that's kind of become a big part of your career.
Yeah.
How long have you been how long have you been a travel nurse?
So I've been a travel nurse for 6 out of my 8 years of nursing. So when I first graduated, like I said, I moved to Nashville. I got a permanent job at a hospital there, so I can learn so I can just, just like every other nurse starting off, you want to get started somewhere. So I worked there for 2 years. While I was there, a year in, I decided to be what they call like a per diem or float pool nurse, where you go from different facility. And the reason I did that was to anticipate what traveling would be like. Because every day you go in, you get different patient, different hospital. So I did that for a while. And then once I feel like, okay, I think I'm ready, with my solid background in being at a specific facility, and then with my travel background from moving around in the same city, I was like, okay. And that's when I decided to hit the road, and the rest is history. So
sounds like as a travel nurse, flexibility is a bit like flexibility, adaptability. Like you got to be a notch up to be able to step into a new environment. And
absolutely, as a travel nurse, you have to be willing to be flexible. Flexibility is the key.
Yeah.
Because it's not like where you go and you have your perfect schedule, people around. I said 2 things you have to be more than willing to. You have to be humble. Humble in the aspect of saying that when you get somewhere, no matter what you know, allow the people at the unit or at the hospital to teach you the way they do it there.
Mm-hmm.
Unless the way they teach you is some kind of against your ethics and it's like magnificence or beneficence, some way where it causes harm to the patient, then you will question it. But being humble enough to know that even though I've been a nurse for 8 years, and this nurse been a nurse for 2 years, she can still teach me things because that's how they do it there, and I don't know about it there. And so that's like a huge thing. So being humble and then being flexible is the key to being a good travel nurse, and then understanding how to kind of see how the flow goes. So.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
That's a good spirit you come with, to be able to learn, and then also to kind of, even at the same time have your experience and your expertise, but then to be open to learning from somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I feel like if you do that, the people at the new hospital will be more welcoming to you. Because there's some travelers who comes in and think, well, they've been a traveler for 15 years, so they know everything.
Yeah.
And they get there and they don't want to adapt. Because adaptability is key. We talked about it.
Yeah.
Part of adapting is allowing people to show you things that, even though you know a better way to do it, at the end of the day, in healthcare, I believe, in my experience, is that there's a better way, but sometimes hospitals has policies and way of doing things, and that outweighs the better way sometimes.
Yeah. Well, listening to you talk, it makes me think about there's kind of this, I don't know if you'd call it like a paradox, like a spiritual kind of paradox or a balance, but it's on the one hand like feeling competent and confident in your abilities. So in this case, you're a good enough nurse, you know how to do it, you feel confident in your abilities to do ICU nursing in a lot of different settings. But then also at the same time, being open to learning new things, I don't know if admitting or accepting like a reality where, hey, I don't know it all. I am good enough, I can do this, I do know enough to do this job really well, and I'm open to learning, I'm open to getting better, I'm thinking about my own experience, like being a doctor, where you get to a level of mastery where it's like, oh, I really got this. But there's also a truth at the same time where you can always get better, and you know what I mean? Like, absolutely. It's like walking that balance without being too close-minded, but still also having the confidence to in what you're doing.
Yeah, I agree.
So wait a minute. So how did you end up in Nashville? Why did you go to Nashville from Dallas?
So, again, it goes back. My whole nursing career started because, in the sense, I was chasing a woman, right? So, I mean, lots of other guys out there know that's just how sometimes life kind of deals you those cards. You deal with them. My girlfriend at the time in college, she moved to Nashville, and I was like, well, if I'm gonna make anything with this girl, I need to move from Arkansas to Nashville. But I was at that time, I believed in this concept of cohabitation was wrong. So I was like, well, I can't live with her because we're not married yet. So I need to have to live by myself. But then I couldn't afford to live by myself because I didn't have a job at the time, and I just a newly nursing school graduate. So I was like, okay. So I convinced two of my buddies from Dallas to move to Nashville with me, so we all could be roommates. And they lived with me for a year until I got like my own job and everything, and I got engaged and we got married, and then we moved there together. But that's only I knew nothing about Nashville. My honest truth, so I wanted to go back to Dallas after college because I was just like, man, that's where my family is. My friends are there.
Yep.
And so I ended up in Nashville just because the girl was there. That's it.
So let's start. We're going backwards for your story. So you were born and grew up in Dallas.
Yes.
You know, to get to a D1 football level, you got to be an athlete. You got to be pretty good.
Yeah.
When did you start playing football? Did you play a bunch of sports when you were a kid?
I played soccer when I was like every other kid when I was young. And then I played football my 6th grade year. I was a little scrawny kid. I mean, I wasn't when I started in high school. I was like 5'4", maybe 5'5", 160 pounds. I bulked up when I got to college. Currently, I'm at 215, 220. But that's
what was your fighting weight in college?
My playing weight was 195. 195 was my playing weight.
How tall were you then?
Well, don't read the stat book because the stat book says I was 5'11", but
the stat book says you're 5'1".
Well, you know how when you get to college, everybody gets a little inch. You know, it helps you.
Wait a minute. So
five. It says 5. 5'9" or something like that.
5'9" or 5'11", 195.
Yeah.
And in reality, what were you?
I mean, in reality, I was probably 5'5", 5'6", 220, 215.
You grew like 5 inches from your book.
Yeah, and it happens to the best of us. And then, so I went to high school. I went to a Catholic high school in Dallas. We were, 3-time defending state champions. So we had a pretty decent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had a awesome high school football program in Texas. And my senior year, we actually lost in the semifinals before the championship game. And then my 3 years, freshman, sophomore, junior year, we won the state championship. So it was kind of, we were going for like that three-peat, and it just didn't really work out. So we lost that game. I got an opportunity to play in college, so I did that. And then I wanted to be a lawyer at first. That was my original goal. I wanted to go to law school, and so I got like a history degree. And I was like...
So wait a minute. You're going through too many things. I got too many questions for you. So, like when you were playing in junior high, were you pretty good at football, or did you like develop in high school, or when did...
I mean, if you're looking at I of course I thought I was good. I mean, I made all the all-star games and all those things, but I wasn't. It wasn't like I'm never the one to say, "Well, I'm better than that next person." Right? It was just, I guess the coaches thought I was good enough because I was playing on varsity as a freshman and all the things. So they thought I was good enough, but I never was like, I'm never gonna be like, "Oh, I'm better than this person." But
was football your favorite? Did you like that more than other sports?
I think so. I think I like football better more than lots of other sports, just because it was one of those sports where, like back then, we used to do those Oklahoma drills. I don't think kids.
I did the Oklahoma.
Yeah,
drill.
I don't think people do that anymore in high school.
Do they really not do it?
Well, I think that's concussion issues. I think they probably stopped doing that.
If
anybody plays football,
nothing like the Oklahoma drill where you just line up and there's
smash,
nowhere for you to run and hide.
And so it used to be. At that time, football used to bring like the mano-a-mano kind of like, hey, it's me and you, one-on-one, and the best man's going to walk through the way.
I loved that.
And so that football brought that out of me. And of course, growing up, you want to be masculine. You want to be like the macho. In Texas, you want to be a Texas high school football player. You want to, just because the Dave Campbell books come out every year in August.
What is the Dave Campbell book? I don't know what that is.
So in Texas... Dave Campbell has like a Texas high school ranking. They rank players, they rank schools, they rank...
It's the talent rankings for football players?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you always want to get in that. Yeah, you want to get in that book.
I see.
And so...
I feel like recruiting is like a bigger deal now. There's online stuff. But even back in our day, That was a big deal.
That was a big deal. That was it. You wait for the
Is it still like that in Dallas? That guy that has a book?
I hope so. The Dave Campbell. I mean, I haven't been home for a while, and I haven't lived in Texas for a while, but I think it should still be that way because if the Dave Campbell book comes out in August, it tells you who's the top player in the city, who's the top player in the state, who's the top player in the district, in the division, like which colleges are looking out, and so you kind of get all that, and so you want to because that's kind of your bragging right? Because you call your buddies from other schools and be like, hey, did you see my ranking? And then you kind of, but that's
why. Texas in football is legendary. Like, football's huge in the South.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you. This is a philosophical question. Is Texas the South? That's the first question. And the other question is, why is football such a big deal in Texas? Why is this the case?
Man, I don't want to speak from my experience. The first question, yes, I believe Texas is the South. I believe Texas is the head.
Do you? Because I get Texans that are like, we are not part of the South.
Well, there's a deep South where you get like the Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, but then you get like the South, Texas. And the reason, and I don't want to disrespect anybody from Alabama, Arkansas, and all those other places.
Yeah.
Texas is the head of the South, whether you want to believe it or not.
Really?
Texas is I think it's the best state in the South.
I feel like that could cause a war. You said both of those things. Texas is the head of the South.
Yes, and when it comes to football, I believe football is big in Texas because if you look at the whole picture of the United States, right? To be honest, if you look at which state in the United States you think can say, today I'm going to separate from the Union and I can function on my own without any...
California.
But they're not in the South. I'm talking about southern states. I'm going to separate from the Union.
California can be pretty independent.
They can. And so, and that's what I'm saying. And in the South, Texas is one of the independent states in the South, I believe, that can pull away. And so they have this macho attitude. If you go back to, like, U.S.-Mexican War of, like, back in 1846, go back to the Texas War with Mexico, it was, like, go back to, like, the Alamo, those guys. It was, like, a masculine thing they did at the Alamo. They defended it, they fought to the end, and it was like, which is why every Texas, people make fun of Texans because they said they're too proud in their state. And, and that's why, because from grade school, you've been told about like the Alamo and what those guys did, Jim Bowie and like.
So wait a minute. My history is educate us about what was it that you were taught about the Alamo regarding Texas history, and then
from what I remember,
what you're supposed to be as a Texan.
Yeah, what I remember is that these guys stood up against the entire country of Mexico and told them that basically they could not. So
Americans in Texas stood up against Mexico, and what did they do?
And they won.
They just battled.
They battled.
What were they fighting for?
Well, they're fighting for Texas independence because Texas at that time, Texas or the Rio Grande, what the Rio Grande is, I guess. And if I'm wrong, all my history teachers back in Dallas, please don't call me because I forgot these things.
This is legend, though. This is what I think it's almost more important what we're taught. It's also important to ground that in the facts or whatever. True. But what the lore and the legend that you're taught is also an important story.
So the legend is this, is that Davy Crockett, James Bowie, and Santa Anna, Santa Anna was the leader of the Mexican army at the time. And they were coming from Mexico City. And they were coming into Houston and the Alamo and those places like that because they were trying to tell those people that are living in that region that they're going to follow the laws and the rules in Mexico.
Fighting for land, ultimately.
Yeah, and then the brave Texans, which is those David Crockett, Jim Bowie, a couple of guys from Tennessee came to help them.
Yeah.
They were saying, no, we're not going to be basically taken over by you guys. It's either death or liberty. And they got caught in this at the Alamo in San Antonio, which was this mission, and they were trying to defend the mission because it was supposedly it was a picture of the last hope that if the Mexican army took over, if that fell, then Texas is going to fall to Mexico.
Yeah.
And so you had thousands of Mexican troops coming across, and then you have like maybe 200 to 500 like farmers and crop shoppers and all these Texans. And they went there, and the idea was like they could have surrendered and just saved their life.
Yeah, right.
But they didn't. They fought to the end. They fought so much and so hard that the Mexican troops were like, even though they had more manpower, they were just exhausted, and they decided to take a break and rest, which is when Santa Anna was captured by the Texans troop because they give it up, and so they got caught. The leader got captured by these 500 Texans who fought bravery and end up changing the tides of the war.
That's a story.
Yeah.
I got a couple of things to say. One, you are a Texan.
That's right. That's right. That's the story.
You are a Texan.
And so we've always been told that we stand independent. We are part of the United States.
There's state pride there,
State pride,
for sure.
absolutely.
I feel like there is a lot of people have state. There's southern pride. There's pride from everywhere, but there is a uniqueness to Texans.
Absolutely,
it's
absolutely.
a thing. You were saying something about how the Texans that kind of mounted that stand at the Alamo. Were willing to give their life to fight for something there.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes me think now, and this is a question for you, it's a question for me, it's a question for everybody listening, but it's like, what are you willing to fight for? Like, is there something that you would be willing to give your life for in the same way? And, that's a question.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's a tough one. I ask myself that all the time. Healthcare, you work in healthcare. Healthcare, you can make a lot of money, but there's a lot of professions you can do that you can make a lot more money.
For sure.
Faster, better, And I think you ask yourself, what are you willing to give your life for? And especially go back to this COVID situation, right?
Yeah.
In this situation, every person working in the hospital building had to deal with that question. Everybody. From the environmental service personnel to the CEO, CNO at the top of the food chain. That's the question you have to make, because every time a patient walks through that door, there's a question of, back before COVID, it was, we didn't think about, this person could have some kind of pandemic illness that could intentionally harm us.
Yeah, we didn't really think about it.
That was never a thought.
Yeah.
But now, that's a thought. It crosses your mind. Like, okay, this person's coming in because their hand got caught off in a machine or something. But there's still a thought in your mind going, well, is this person COVID negative? Is this person COVID positive?
Well, give me a break. We met on a all COVID ICU floor. Everybody there had it, and so it does. I went to New York and I was on a COVID floor there, and I worked with tons of these, over 100 patient encounters with COVID patients. And in the beginning, I was thinking like this. I was like I was actually having the thought, what if I do die? And then you have this battle in your mind where it's like, no, you're young and healthy, you're not gonna die, you're not the person that's gonna die.
Yeah.
But the emotional part of your brain is like, bro, this isn't as safe as the stuff you've done before. There is some risk there. What if you do die? How do you feel about that? Even if it is 1 in 100 or 2 in 100, whatever the small risk is, like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
And at least consciously, I came to this conclusion where I was like, there's a lot of U.S. military engagements that I don't believe in, wouldn't give my life for, because I'm like, I don't think this is a just war.
Yeah.
There's other stuff where it's like, I can understand why we wanted to pack up for World War II and get in there to fight.
Yeah.
But giving my life for a military cause, but could I give my life where I'm putting myself in the front to save lives in COVID in the middle of this terrible pandemic? And I was like, what a way to go. What a way to go where you're giving yourself for this. Yeah, you die, but we're all going to die anyway.
Yeah.
You go out like this, and there's a little bit, I feel like you could touch a little bit of legend and immortality with it,
Yeah.
And then I remember I said that, so I kind of was talking to myself like a soldier, like I'm ready to go in, I'm ready to win. This is something I would give my life for. I totally had been preparing for this my whole life, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I told this to this female physician that I work with, and she's like, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with the way that you're thinking right now. This I've seen young, especially men, you need to rethink this.
Oh, absolutely.
And she got into my head a little bit, and I was like, maybe I am kind of crazy.
Actually, that conversation came to me when I talked to my parents. Again, as a traveler, I'm away from my parents. My parents live in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
But I talk to them, and they know I'm a nurse, and they know. And so when I tell them I'm going to certain places, they watch the news. They know what's going on. So if I tell them I'm going to New York, and they're, and all they see on the news is all these COVID cases in New York, they're like, they ask like, why am I going to a place where
Why are you
it's
going
on.
into the danger
You know?
zone?
So yeah, it's like a people join the military, right? Like, why do you join the military knowing the number one job of a person in the military is to go to, like, if there's a war, you will go. There's no question about it.
That's your
Like,
job.
you don't join the military to think, well, maybe I would not go to war. It's like, you will go if there is.
Right.
That's what you sign up for when you sign on the dotted line. And so my parents, they don't understand when I say, well, I'm a nurse. This is what I do. I'm going to go to places that I'm needed. And if New York is the place I'm needed, then that's where I'm going to go. Whether the news said, oh, the cases are going up or not. Yeah, and so at that moment, even though I'm thinking, like, I'm going to do something good, my parents are thinking, oh, I'm still their boy, you know? That's still their son going there.
They're still protective. They worry about you, of course.
And so that kind of gets me to thinking of, I could die. I could go there. I could catch it.
What do you think about that?
You know? Yeah.
You have a wife?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Look, for now, we don't have no kids, but it does cross your mind where you're like, you know, what if I had a kid? You know, what if I had a family? What if I had, you know, I also like, I have past medical history of asthma. So, like, you know, before the new program,
You have a little bit of risk.
Yeah. So I have more risk than someone who had none of that, you know. And I'm also in the ICU, so I'm also on the front line. And I'm also at facilities where sometimes the CDC was changing all these rules with COVID preparedness and how we're supposed to dress and how we're supposed to interact. So all that was questioning, like, okay, well, again, I just took this patient from the ED. I brought him to the unit. The whole time, I've had him for 3 days, not wearing PPE. On day 5, all of a sudden now, he has, like, increased oxygen demand. He meets all the petechiae in the lung, like the lung borders being all thicker. He went from nasal cannula to high flow oxygen.
Got sicker.
Yeah, and so we're like, okay, well, is this COVID? Well, now let's test him. Well, day 6, we test him. I've had him for 3 days. Multiple other nurses have had him for 3 days.
You guys have all been exposed.
Yeah, so now we're hoping, like, that result comes back that he's negative, because if it comes out positive, you know. Now, how does that affect me? Do I take that home? You know, and so, yeah, so the thought absolutely crossed my mind. I could imagine the nurses who had husbands at home who was not in healthcare, who had kids at home who was not in healthcare, the people who had family members at home who were older, so that thought process, and a lot of nurses would talk about it. And it's easy for people to say, well, just quit your job and everything, but these people, that's, you know, you spend your whole life. Like, I've been a nurse for 8 years. I couldn't imagine just, like, quitting and have nothing because, you know, but that's, you know, that's part of the, so, I mean, yeah, so yeah, in every moment since this COVID thing has started, that thought have crossed my mind, have crossed many nurses' mind, and we talk about it with each other and say, like, what's your thought on that?
So you've taken care of a lot of COVID patients in the ICU at this point. You and I are talking, it's late May 2020. What was your experience as a nurse in the beginning? Like, what were you anticipating from what you had read and prepared? And then what was it, your first few patients? What was your reaction to these guys?
So when I first started hearing about COVID, of course, we were getting the information on our daily work email about, you know, this back in early January.
Yeah.
At the time I was in San Jose. If you know anything about San Jose, and you've never been there, San Jose has a higher Asian population than most of California.
Yep.
You know, so
I worked at Santa Clara Valley Hospital.
And so we were
a few years ago, very diverse, and a lot of Asia, Southeast Asia.
And so we're getting really
so many different languages. Yeah.
So we're like, oh no, we're gonna get hit hard. So we're getting prepared for it. They were, you know, but the preparation was like, okay, well, if this happened, we'll close this unit down. We'll open this unit, make it a COVID unit.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know exactly. We was just kind of figuring out what the COVID step would be. At the time, the CDC was revising all the protection. At that time, nobody even knew that there was a supply shortage, right? It was more of a, well, in our minds, nurses, we've always been known that there are supplies, right? Because there's these rules that hospitals set, like personal protective gears and things you cannot do. And there was never a time where they're like, well, these rules are going to change because of supply or because of policy or whatever.
I've never heard that stuff either.
And so the weirdest part to nurses, what we didn't understand was why the rules were changing, right? Because we've always been told that rules change based on research and policy and, like, science. To find out that rules are being changed based on supply kind of question all the rules. And so in the beginning of the preparation, we're just like, okay, now we can wear masks from one room to the next room. Could never do that before. Now you can wear a gown for 24 hours. Like, you have to, like, take the gown off in the room, put it in the trash can, wash your hands before you come out. Now we can just walk through the hallway, and so it's just like, that was at the beginning. That was what's happening.
So you're starting to question the changing of these rules,
Yes.
and you kind of realize you're not dumb. Like, you realize they're doing it for cost or for the amount or just supply. Lack of supply.
Yeah, and so some people will be like, well, maybe they're doing it for, maybe the CDC rule change. They're like, well, no, maybe they're doing it for supply. So then it becomes very confusing.
Yeah.
So the question, am I following these rules? Am I wearing this mask, this N95? Am I washing my hands? Because, like, am I taking off these gowns because that's, like, science have always said that's what you do to decrease the spread of disease? But if that's the case, then why am I not doing it now? This is disease. Everything checks off. So I should not be wearing it from one room to the next. And so that was the beginning of the first couple of weeks. Then when we started finally getting patient coming in, we started our first positive patient, they decided to put the unit upstairs as like the COVID unit. Most hospitals turned their surgical ICU into a COVID unit. Because at that time, people weren't doing elective surgeries, and so less people were coming in for elective surgeries. And so they turned that unit into most likely.
So explain this a little bit to the people. There's different kinds of ICUs. You just said a surgical ICU. So there might be one part of the hospital that has 10 or 20 beds.
Yes.
And that would be like a medical ICU. There might be a cardiac intensive care unit. There might be a neuro intensive care unit. And then other ones would be surgical. So that might be people that had big heart surgeries, open heart surgery, whatever. So there's different ICUs. And that part of the planning was, well, we might take over the neuro or the cardiac or the surgical ICU and make them all COVID ICUs.
Yeah, and because at that time, most people were not coming in for elective. Elective meaning like you come in on your own terms because you spoke with non-emergency. Come in because you have like a stomach pain. They might do like a GI surgery on you, which your family doctor send you in for that. We put you on what we call the surgical ICU floor. Well, if you're not coming in for that surgery because you're waiting until the COVID finished and then you can come in a couple of months down the road, that unit is just empty.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, we're going to turn that into so we start making COVID units. And then the problem with the COVID units was that we would get a COVID patient in, which was great. Our first COVID patient was great. And hospitals were trying to figure out, well, how do we minimize our usage of PPE and also take care of patients? Because realize, back then, a nurse goes to a patient room about 20, 30, almost 100 times in a shift, in a 12-hour shift.
Yeah.
There's not a set number of time. So you can't give me 5 gowns and say I can only go to a patient room 5 times. Like
it is. I mean, it's just insane. Like the number, because I've always thought about this too, and I was like, I went crazy. I was like, the PP thing, it's not. And then I would watch with one patient, and I was like, wow, you burn through that stuff so fast.
Yeah.
You're just in and out of what it's like.
Yeah.
This isn't sustainable. What are we? How are we gonna?
Yeah. Like you never notice how much PPE you use until this COVID thing, and then people are actually like keeping account of the PPE, right? You were like, oh, whoa. So there was like, oh man, a pump goes off, you have to fully gown to go into a room to stop a pump.
So how many times for one patient in a day would you say you go in and out of the room?
Man,
ballpark. 50, 100, 500?
I mean, I wouldn't say, I don't know. I wouldn't be 500, but it would be way more than 50.
100 or 200 times?
Yes.
So potentially, this is why this stuff, like practically, it didn't work. Like, you have to stay safe. That's absolute. But then it's like, wait a minute. The rule is every time I go in and out of that room, I have to put a new one on and off. So they're going to run out of like,
well, at the beginning,
200 gowns.
Yes,
for like one patient and one nurse.
Yeah,
that's not even the respiratory therapist or the person drawing the blood or.
Yeah. So at the beginning, that's why that was such an issue, because at the beginning, we were like, okay, we've always been, like we can't just like let the pump be, and then the idea was, well, combine care, right? Put it all in like, in increments of time. But if someone's critical, there's not a time where the vital sign's going to change. They don't like.
You mean to like minimize you're going in and out.
The patient doesn't tell you when they're going to desat or drop their pressure. It's nothing like that. So you have to like accommodate to what the patient is doing, what it's giving you.
Yeah.
So and so other places they decided, well, to fix that problem, well, let's put the pumps outside of the room.
Yeah.
And so some places did that, some places didn't. It was just all physician preference. They were like.
And so like, let's say if the pump is inside the room, just to kind of explain this a little bit to the audience, like, so when you give medicines, let's say you're giving an antibiotic for pneumonia, normally, somebody has an IV. They've got a needle in their vein, and you run the medicine through a machine, a pump,
Mm-hmm.
goes through a tube into the IV, and that machine, that pump usually sits right next to the bed.
Yeah.
And so you walk in with the medicine, you connect it to the pump, and then it flows in. And to do that, to change the medicine, to give them a new medicine, some patients you're giving tons of medicines, 50 medicines in a day, for example.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons you're in and out of the room all the time.
Yeah.
And so then the thought was, well, let's take the pump and put it on the outside of the room so that you don't have to keep going in and out of the room. If you were going in and out of the room, let's say 250 times for one patient, and then the pump was on the outside now,
Mm-hmm.
how many fewer times would you go in the room, you think?
I said that probably cuts it about 25% less. 25%.
Maybe a quarter?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, 25% less. And then, so...
But you're still going in the room with
yeah. There's no way you can be in the ICU with a critical care patient and not go in the room at least 150 times a day.
Yeah, so you're still going.
You're still going a lot. That's what I'm saying. It didn't really change.
It's a good idea, but it didn't really make a big dent.
It didn't change the trajectory. Yeah, so it was like, well, okay, it was more issues. And then the other issue we're having at the beginning also was that getting test results.
Yeah.
So now you have a lot of people who's waiting on test result, but they're still got to be treated as if they were COVID until the result comes back.
Giving them all the meds.
So they need PPE. So when I go see them, I have to wear PPE also.
Yeah.
And so
the rule out COVID.
Yeah. And it was getting, because the problem is, because now if I leave a COVID room positive with the same gown and go to a rule out room.
Yeah, you don't want to infect somebody. So if you have multiple, how many patients did you have normally at that time?
So in the ICU, it's supposed to be 2 patients, but when we first started, we had one COVID patient per 1 nurse.
Yeah, 1-to-1.
Yeah, because we're trying to figure out all the process. It was 1-to-1.
So explain to people what a nursing ratio is.
Yeah. So a nursing, which is a good thing. I feel like every state should have nursing ratio, but they don't have that out there. But every state should have nursing ratio. But in the state of California, which is I think one thing they did really well, is the nurses allow themselves to have nursing ratio. So I usually work in the ICU. A nursing ratio in the ICU in the state of California is 2 patient to 1 nurse, which is great because it gives the nurse ability to focus truly on those 2 patients. Some places where I've worked, mostly southern states like that, you can have 3, you can have 4, based
in
on
the ICU,
based on the acuity. And sometimes based on the acuity, and
sometimes you can have.
Yeah,
that's busy. Man.
That's this busy. But I always tell someone, if someone's in the ICU and they don't have transfer order to go to like the next level of care, which is lower than the ICU, then there's a reason why they're still there. So to me, they're still critical, and the ability for them changing is still great. So. So patient ratio is a good thing. Med-surg is probably med-surg is a unit where the patient is more stable.
Yeah.
Some of them are on monitor, some of them are not, but they're more able-bodied. They're more allowed to do more things. I think here it's about 4-to-1, 5-to-1.
Yeah.
But those patients are a little more. They don't need constant.
So the patient doesn't need as intense care and constant monitoring.
Yes.
So the nurse is probably not giving as many medications, and so they can handle more patients. So maybe the ratio is 4 or 5-to-1 on a med-surg floor or ward. Those are called the wards.
Yeah.
So that's what it is in California, which is probably a lot due to the nursing union out here, which has been really effective for both these ratios and pay. Nurses in California make almost double or triple sometimes.
Yeah, which is good.
Elsewhere, which is crazy.
Yeah.
What are the ratios in other parts of the country? What have you heard?
Yeah, so I'm saying, places I've actually worked, again, I worked in the South, I've worked in Texas, I worked in Tennessee, I've worked in Florida, which is like the major big cities in the states in the South.
Yeah.
And in the southern state, they have this thing called right to work concept, which, not to get too bogged down in detail, but the idea that when you have a job is a right? It's a right that you have a job. It's not a privilege. It's not something, which is crazy because if you look at healthcare, it's like you want safe patient ratio for your loved ones. You want your loved one to have a nurse that's like focusing on that and not having like all these things all these other patients to think about.
Yeah.
So in Tennessee and in Texas and Florida, I can speak for those places because I've actually worked there.
Yeah.
This is not like they say or someone told me.
No, this is your experience.
This is my experience of it, and There, like I said, in the ICU, you can get up to 3, up to 4 patients based on the acuity. The ratio should be, the ratio is 2 to 1 if you have the staff. But if you don't have the staff, the hospitals are not going to close down, and you cannot just have a patient without
It's
a
like
nurse.
there's a big shortage, and that's what
Yeah.
you're stuck doing, and so
Yeah.
it's probably less safe.
Yeah, it is definitely less safe.
That's
And so
crazy.
it's up to the charge nurse to make sure that she's pairing patients based on acuity, so that one nurse doesn't have like a heavier load than the other, even though, and so it becomes more of a hassle on that level.
Sometimes in the ER, we'll have our nurses go 1-to-1, where somebody's so sick, we just want one nurse focusing on that patient to give them the best care that they need.
Yeah.
When I was in New York, I heard of stories. It wasn't like this when I was there, but when there was a surge beforehand, ICU nurses, they weren't on a ratio of 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 or even 1-to-4. Some of them were 1-to-7, 1-to-8.
Before the surge?
During the surge.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Sick COVID patients.
Yes.
So that's like crazy.
Insane.
I mean, if you have an average ICU patient, that's crazy. And these corona patients, COVID patients in the ICU were so sick. You know, there's so many factors of why that mortality was 80 or 90% during that surge. I mean, how can even a good ICU nurse take care of 7 or 8 ICU critical patients?
Yeah. And I know that some of my friends who were nurses in New York at the time of the because I've also worked in New York as a traveler, but I left in January. No, I left in December, January, right before the whole thing. But I still have friends who were there, worked at a different facility there, and they were saying that the issue was like, again, this is where it comes when hospitals staff based on acuity, not on the actual what's going on with the patient. You know, because like a COVID patient could come in, and you probably have a better idea of the progression. But they were talking COVID patient would come in on room air. 2 hours later, they'll be on 4-liter nasal cannula, which is a higher oxygenation concentration.
Yeah.
Then they'll be on high flow. Then they'll need to be intubated. Well, that patient is no longer on 6-to-1 because that was what the computer said he was when he came in. Now he's intubated and he has multiple drips going. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, so the patient will come in the morning,
Yeah.
and I had patients like this that didn't need any oxygen at all, and in a matter of hours, they went to complete dependence,
Total
needing
care.
complete respiratory failure, needing a machine to breathe for them. They got a lot sicker, and like you said, their acuity totally changed, so they can't they can no longer be one patient of six of some nurse. Now that changes, and it needs to be 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 or whatever.
Yeah, and so a lot of hospitals didn't. At the beginning, there were a lot of issues with that because you didn't know how to staff. Because
because they would get sick so fast.
Because
you have to be able to adjust.
Because hospital staffing, from my experience, hospital staffing, it's like, well, you count the amount of patients you have in the morning, and then based on that, you bring in your staff. No hospital wants to overstaff because then you're paying people with no patient.
Interesting.
But things change throughout the day, which means you have to call in staff. Well, if you cannot get staff to come in because they're off or you call them off, then there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, you're screwed, and you have to deal with it. No, that I think you're exactly right. You're opening a window to us of the process of how that staffing is done, and it's always a balance. I appreciate the problem from whoever the nurse manager or the administrator is. Like you don't want to understaff, but you also have to. You can't overpay too much, and we've all had plenty of times where we're sitting there twiddling our thumbs and nothing's going on. Yeah. So, but with the COVID patients, just like you alluded to, I mean, I don't know if you had patients like this. I had more than one that just like they go downhill fast within hours, so that is an interesting staffing challenge. So when so I hear you kind of talking about all of there was the preparation and there's the changing PPE and all that stuff. What was your experience as a nurse like taking care of these patients outside of PPE, but like how sick they were, the medications you were giving, if they were getting better, were they dying, and what did you think about all that?
I think, from my experience, there was a lot of death. I don't know, it was because of the medication, but I feel like, so if I take care of a total of like 20, 30 COVID patients in my entire, since this 5-month thing I've started, I would say, for me to physically see them leave the ICU, probably saw about 10. And again, I was also in more of a sicker area, and people talk about like, past medical history, all those things has an effect and play a role in it, whether
Yeah.
they're hypertension, whether they're diabetic, they got all these
Right.
things. But my experience was there was a lot more death than normal. Just in the fact that, like I said, patient come in, you intubate them, you give them all these medicine, you give them the steroid, give them the. I never had the experience of giving anyone remdesivir, where everybody talks about on TV.
Remdesivir, yeah.
I didn't have.
You guys never gave that.
No, never
gave
that.
You were,
in the places I was, never gave that. So I don't know where that was or where they gave
it was kind of the base recommendation was that it should be given in the context of a study because it was experimental.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising to hear that the places they
Yeah.
weren't running a study and they weren't giving it.
But we tried the steroids, we tried the multiple antibiotics, we thought the vitamins,
hydroxychloroquine, all that
did
stuff.
All that.
Yeah.
But I think also there was a lot of older population where I was in comparison to younger folks coming in, and so those older.
You gotta be fucking kidding me! I'm gonna lose my mind if that stopped. Oh, I hope I didn't just cuss like that. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I looked over at the. This has been a really good interview, by the way. I looked over at the computer, and apparently I've got a energy saver thing where the thing shut the screen down, and I looked at it, and it was off, and actually it's still going. So good. All right, I just turned that off. Sorry for dropping the F-bomb. It's been a great. It's been a really good interview.
Awesome.
This is all great. You're an incredible interview. So
no, where I was at, and again, most of my experience was older population. Most of my patients that I took care of with COVID were mostly over the age of 60. I think there was probably a 145-year-old who was a little younger, but most of my patients were.
So most of them were older. You're saying over 60.
Yeah.
And did you agree? Did you find most of your patients, especially the sicker ones, had a lot of medical issues?
Multiple comorbidities for sure, and so which is why my outcome seems more dire than other. There are other people who took a younger COVID patient, they end up making it away. So I feel like more of them passed away than survived.
Did you have some patients that died?
Yeah, absolutely. How
was that as a nurse?
It was devastating. For example, I'll tell you an example. I had a patient that passed, and especially as a Spanish-speaking gentleman. I personally don't know Spanish. So I talked to his family. They were, the hospital tried to do their process where they would try to set up a room so the family can come and see him. But this family was terrified because he was the third member in the family to have COVID positive. The younger son.
Were the other two okay, or did they die?
Yeah, the younger son survived, and then his wife survived.
Yeah.
But the guy was, he was there, and they end up having this. So we tried to get the daughter to come in and see if she wants to come be with him for his last, but she was scared, so she didn't want to come. So I went to one of the clerk who is a Spanish speaker, and I was like, if someone's in Spanish and they were about to pass, what do you do for them? And she mentioned a song. So I got my personal phone out and played one of my Spotify and played some Spanish music to help ease this guy into it, because it was just me and him. It was just, there was nobody else in the room. It was just, his family wasn't coming.
Yes, he was going.
It was just me and him.
Wow.
And I grew up Catholic. I'm consider myself still be Catholic. So I just kind of held his hand and said a couple of Hail Marys while I'm there, because he probably didn't understand it because it was just me speaking English and him just laying there and
doing your best to try to be with him.
Yeah, do my best to try to be with him and be in that moment.
Death.
Yeah, in his last.
God.
And so I was there. His heart takes the what we call bradycardia went down to where it's takes this what we call asystole, where the heart is completely flatline.
Yeah.
And I was there. I was holding his hands as that happened, and it was emotional because everything you do, because I have grandparents who are older. I see my grandparents, and I'm like, man, I hope wherever my grandparents are in Dallas, if they go to the hospital in that moment, because my parents, even though I'm a nurse, my parents are they're not as educated on the healthcare issues, what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I can see him saying, well, no, I don't want to come to the hospital because I'm so scared I might get it. So, and I can see my grandparents sitting there dying alone. And I just wish nurses all around who listen to this can just understand that no matter how busy you are, that 5 minutes, that 10 minutes of holding up, when the patient's about to come to their last minute. Just go in there, just hold their hands. Because I don't know what happened. I don't know where they go after life. I have no idea, no clue. But that moment, I know that I can control that, and that's what I care about. And I was there with him. So yeah, it was emotional, and I had to step out. And I saw many nurses on the unit who cried after their COVID patient passed. They had to step out, take off all their PPE, and go cry because it was just so emotional. Because again, you have these patients for like months, hoping that they will turn around. They have days of good and then have days of bad. You're a physician. You've gone through rounds, and when we tell you, oh, this is where we are today, and there's been many times where like, you're like, man, this patient's not going to make it out of here just because his comorbidities, his lungs are so bad, the chances of him getting off the vent is so hard, like, and so the patient just passed. And families not, especially in the low income community, families were not coming to the hospital to be with their loved ones. And I don't know if that was because, again, because they were experiencing such a greater, they're carrying such a greater burden of this whole COVID thing, right? There was 4 or 5 people in the family who had COVID, and now, well, I'm not gonna go to the hospital where all the COVID people are, so I'm just gonna stay home, and I hope grandpa and grandma, die with dignity. So, I believe in the concept of dying with dignity, and that's it. Yeah.
God, I mean, just listening to you describe being there with him and trying to comfort him in his own music, even though you didn't have the language, and to pray. And I feel like there's so much, I feel like the conversation in the media is just so off right now. And these kind of stories ground this reality. I don't know what the number is now. 90,000 are dead. Like, whatever it is, it's a meaningless number.
Mm-hmm.
But when you hear a story like this, where it's just so real, somebody's dying, their family's terrified to get it. Like, we can all understand that.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do as a nurse with this? It's like, oh, God, I did the only thing I knew how to do, And then the guy passes. The story that I've talked about a lot that broke my heart in New York was 80-something-year-old older woman who spoke Spanish, but she had dementia and wasn't terribly responsive, but there was no visitation. And she was dying, without a doubt, over the course of days. She ended up dying in about a week. That was after I was there, but I just couldn't stop thinking about how this woman was dying, and her family couldn't be there. Not many people, if at all, spoke her language, and she was just so alone and suffering in that moment. And I was like, my God, just the amount of suffering at the end for so many people. I go back and forth. Like, you're an ICU nurse. You have patients that die all the time. That's part of the job. But there seems to be, to me, I don't know if evil is the word. There's an added burden of suffering in this that is so complicated. People are sicker. They're dying alone. There's something in me that just kind of cries out. That's like, and it comes up when you tell that story, and it's not reflected in the news media. These damn numbers and this conversation about reopening the economy, all of that stuff it's really side skirting a human experience of suffering here that I think is huge.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big difference, like I said, as a nurse, I've seen many people pass, right? Because, everybody, eventually we all, like you said at the beginning, we all are going to pass,
We're
right?
all gonna die.
I've seen a lot of people die from whatever their cause may be. But I think the biggest change in the COVID death, to me, is the fact that people are dying alone. Mostly when people die in the hospital, you can, you set it up, their family comes and stay with them, and they're not scared they're going to get COVID. Everybody sits around, and sometimes, even the people who don't have family, sometimes the chaplain can come by and sit with them, other non-medical hospital staff. But when COVID kicks in, most of those non-medical staff were not in the hospital. I know the hospitals I work at, I didn't even think I physically saw a chaplain. Now, there was, because I remember my patient, I called to ask for his last rites, because I remember I read through his chart, say he was Catholic, so I was like, well, if he's Catholic, it's fine, maybe we call a priest for his last rites or whatever. And I don't know if they didn't have a priest at the time, or it was just since the priest was a little bit older, he was also afraid of his safety. But I remember they were like, well, there's no priest coming.
Yeah.
And so it was just like, okay, well, what do we do now?
Yeah, you're the priest, man.
Yeah, like you're the nurse, you're the family, you're the priest, you're the crying daughter, you're the crying son, you're everything at that moment, And so I think that's why, and I understand people are suffering. Also, people who are quote unquote their business are shut down and all this thing, because you mentioned talking about like how the media portrayed it and how I see people on TV talking about
what do you think?
Open this up, open now, and a part of me I get really pissed off. Because I believe that I don't even if you believe that our death rate is so low, if you believe that nothing's happening, or like whatever you believe, at the end of the day, like I saw it. Like I'm not telling you what I seen these people pass away. Whatever the cause of his death was, what brought him to the hospital was because he had COVID. He always had heart attack. He always had heart issue, but he was at home with it. When COVID came in, he had to come to the hospital, and so now he can't leave the hospital. He's dying, and I understand like you gotta open, but that's why I think you gotta open it up safe. I'd be like, open this stuff up, get people go, but like you gotta be smarter than just we're losing money, let's open it up.
I think so too.
It's
the same thing I've been saying. It's like I get it. We gotta open. People can't stay at home but you can't be reckless about it.
Yeah.
We have to do it in a safe way, and that's not what's happening right now.
And the issue, and again, now I've heard nurses talk about this all the time. They're like, well, do we believe the CDC now, right? Like healthcare in America, we're going to where people in America are questioning what the CDC is saying, right? Because now they're saying, well, the CDC says, well, we can do this and do that, but then the CDC changed the rules on this and that.
Yeah, the CDC's been polluted by politics.
Yeah, which is insane because that's our only size government body when it comes to like policies and on how to do things. So yeah, open stuff up, but like.
You're so right.
You're
just speaking the truth, man.
Meet those guidelines because there's over 90,000 families in America. You go and look at them in the eye and tell them COVID isn't real. Go look them in the eye and tell them COVID isn't real. That their loved one death was going to happen either way. The idea is insane to me.
This is a couple things that I think what happened was everybody was scared. Young, old, everybody. Now, as we've gotten more information, it's become clear. 3 things have become clear. It's older people, like you said, over 60. It's people that have comorbidities.
Mm-hmm.
And so the young, healthy are like, oh, it's not me. I'm not afraid anymore. I think I'm done with this home quarantine. I'm waiting. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that it is it's disproportionately minority.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Black, Latino.
Absolutely.
And so you've got a bunch of young, healthy white people, young, healthy, older, and if they have means to socially distance and all this stuff, and they're like, yeah, we're not as worried. This isn't us. This isn't a thing. And so what it feels like to me, and I feel crazy saying this out loud, is it feels like people are like, we don't care.
Yeah.
We'd rather open things up. And I don't think it's that
callous. I don't think it's that callous.
I don't think it's that conscious, but I think there's a subconscious, like, oh, I'm not afraid for me anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's really, like, I remember seeing this thing. This was on Fox.
Yeah.
It was this, like, old 90-year-old white guy, and he was like, I'll sacrifice myself for the economy. Yeah. And I was like, no! We're not sacrificing anybody for the economy. Like you said, like, let's open up, but let's do it safely and wisely and whatever. But it doesn't feel to me like that's what's happening.
Yeah, I was talking to my friends from Texas, growing up in Dallas, going to private school, most of my friends are quote-unquote conservative, right? And
Texas is pretty conservative.
Place. Yeah, I am with my
pretty red.
Yeah, with my bleeding liberal heart and thinking like, you can change the world, you can change people's heart, you can make a difference. And so we have this conversation with my friends, and I would tell them, I was like, being a healthcare worker, there's one thing I've never seen. I've never seen anyone come back from death. But I've seen a lot of people come back from low without having any money. As long as you're alive to work to get back to there, you will. Don't get me wrong, it will be some suffering. But there's a suffering where you can come back from, and there's a suffering where there's no way you can, like, no one has the antidote to come back from death.
Yeah.
No one. So to me, it's simple. Like, again, and I'm speaking from someone who don't have a small business. I don't own a small business. I don't know what it's like to run a small business.
Yeah.
I don't know the struggle you have to put up with a small business to keep it open, and I understand your struggle and all that. But I do understand that I'm looking at it from my healthcare perspective. Because if you have a small business and you have 100 people coming into your business, I always tell my friends, you have 100 people coming in. Well, if you open up and only 25 come back, is it really worth opening up for?
Yeah.
I don't know. You have to make that decision for yourself.
This is what I think about that conversation is, I think it's totally reasonable to talk about, hey, these lives matter. Everybody that's dying that we're worried about in the future, that matters. And then, but there's also a cost to keeping things closed, not reopening, home quarantine.
Yeah.
I think it's reasonable to like weigh these back and forth and go, well, gosh, if we're doing something where people are now dying of ruptured appendicitis and heart attacks and strokes because they're not coming in, there's all this mental health stuff, people are killing themselves, I think like that's actually a fair thing to take into account. Yeah. But that's not what the conversation is.
It's not.
The
it's
conversation is, oh, we know people are going to die. We don't care. We're opening the economy up anyway. And that's what I have a problem.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Like you can simultaneously do both of them and still keep people safe and protected.
See, I think the same thing.
So I think we're until we figure that out. But I also, I also think it's crazy concept of just like as a healthcare worker, like my friends text me and they ask me, they're like, "Hey man, is this COVID thing as real as?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's real. I know you don't have anyone close to you who's going through it, but it's real. It's happening. People are dying. There's family members. Which picture from? I'll talk about time. Look at your Christmas picture. That picture is going to change for the next Christmas. There are people where the picture is going to change.
No, that's crazy. That's a good way to put it.
And the idea that just because it's not affecting you isn't real. And I think that's why people who go to healthcare, I feel like this is what makes them different. That's why we feel so much anger and passion towards it. It's because when you go into healthcare, you're going in to a profession that you're saying, like, you're going in to help people do things right. Like, nobody goes into healthcare because they want to just harm and kill people. You're going to healthcare because you want to make a difference and help people out. And that profession is, I'll tell you, it's one of the only professions in the world where you can be there with someone at the happiest moment, which is birth, and at the saddest moment, which is death.
Yeah, the range.
Right? You can be there throughout all of that. My accountant is not going to be there when I have my child. He's not. He's not going to be at the bed. Mm. He's not. His job is just make sure I'm making money. Right? Mm. That's just simple as that. But there's going to be a nurse when I'm born in my baby. There's going to be a nurse when I'm saying taking my last breath. Mm-hmm. There is. And so we see it. We see this economy thing. It's like, well, do I think my accounting needs to make money? Absolutely. But do I think Grandma Sue needs to pass away for my accounting to make money? Absolutely not.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be either or.
Yeah.
So you're a Texan, and I think Texas has kind of taken one of the more aggressive reopening strategies. What do you think about that? So you know the culture in Texas.
Yeah. So to me, I feel like this should have gone slower. To me, I feel like the things that should have been done before anything opened up is, one, there should have been testing. There should have been enough testing done, especially to a healthcare worker. And the only way I would know if there's enough testing is if I show up to work and I, as a healthcare worker, can get a test if I need one. All my friends who are nurses in Texas, they cannot just go up to work and say, I want a test.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And to this day, on this day we're doing this podcast, my friends in Texas cannot just go up and say, I want a test and get tested.
Testing is still limited.
It's still limited.
Do you think that's because they don't want to know? Like, people in charge are like, we don't need so many tests out there because then we're going to have more positive cases.
I mean, again, I want to think people are good, right? Like, I want to think, Like, I go through life thinking people are good. Again, because I'm looking at someone, I treat someone from the moment I meet them, right? Like, if I'm taking care of a bank robber, if I'm taking care of a priest, they're both the same.
Yeah,
They
you
both
want to
get the
treat
same
them well.
bed. So I want to think that the people who are making the decision are truly taking the information they're getting, and they don't have politics out of it, and they're making the decision. Am I naive to think that way? Sometimes I feel that way.
Yeah.
But I want to believe that because my parents are old. They live in Texas. They're going to go to the grocery store. So to me, I don't want Texas open if my parents are going to get sick.
How old are your parents?
My dad's about 74. My mom's about 65.
You worry about them?
Absolutely. Especially
with this?
With this. Especially in the state of Texas. Like, I told my younger brother came home from college and he's there. So I sent him some money and I was like, hey, you go to the grocery store and you do all the shopping, you get all the food thing, let mom and dad stay at home. Because I don't know what's out there. I don't know if that buggy has been changed. I don't know, like the shopping cart, that's what you guys call it down here, has been changed.
Oh, a shopping cart is a buggy?
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
You know, I don't know if that's been changed. And we're going to make sure that like, those things are clean. And so I tell them all the time, because if there's no testing, you will never know. You'll never know who has it. You know, contact tracing is a concept. My friends don't even know what that concept is, because people are not talking about that. You know, testing to me is the key. And if you don't have that, then why are you opening? Use all the money and resources you have to provide the testing. And not just the testing, but the result in a timely manner. Like, why is it, for example, the patient that we share together, why is it 6 months in, it still takes 2 days to get a COVID result back?
That affects our ability to take care of the patient.
Why is it?
Changes what we do.
Why are we not, as the greatest country on earth, figure it out to get a COVID result back quick? Why is it taking 2 days to get a COVID result back?
So you're asking a really good question. I have a lot of potential answers to that question. And those answers are not people are good.
That's what I'm saying.
The answers are people have agendas.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
And
there's a reason.
I'm telling you, I'm growing up now I'm learning. No, before, I'm learning, like, everything is agenda based.
Here's my answer. Maybe some people don't want the results.
Maybe
some people don't want higher numbers.
Which is insane.
And they don't want to know. I mean, it makes perfect sense in an election year. This is a quote that I put on Twitter the other day. I came up with this myself. I said, there is too much at stake to tell the truth. How horrible is that?
That's tough.
But I think it's true. I think that applies right now. There's so much at stake between money and politics. Telling the truth.
I mean, do you think, like, I don't know, I'll ask myself, I was like, if we had a different leadership running this country, like, if we took it back to the idea and the decency of the office of the presidency and the honesty of the leader of the free world, if we take it back to that concept and we have someone like that, would the division process in this country, like, because right now my friend, like, it's funny, there's people in Texas who, like, think, like, who still argues that this is not real, it's not happening. No, I don't understand.
Denial is the most basic
and I don't understand the concept.
coping mechanism.
Like, how do you like live in a world and don't think the sky is blue? The sky's always been blue.
You know, we have a choice. All of us use denial every day.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. I mean,
not everybody has my perspective or your perspective at the bedside to have seen people die of this thing and know that it's real.
Yeah.
Not everybody's had that. I don't think I got it until I went to New York and I saw people. I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't just respiratory failure and viral pneumonia. It's kidney failure. It's clots in the lung and leg. It's strokes. It's like all of these other things. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a really unique and deadly virus.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it before. I didn't get that until I took care of those people.
Yeah, I mean, I want to hope that people, because again, like, I just feel like, and that's what I'm saying, like, we need to, like, teach more compassion, you know, because, like, I don't have to be homeless to know that being homeless is a sad situation.
Yeah.
Right? Thanks to the grace of God, I'm financially stable. I can live and eat and do whatever I want. But I also know that if I'm driving down the street and I see a homeless person, you know, whether they choose that life or whether there's circumstances that got them there, the idea of that action is still sad. I know it's still real. Like, I don't have to pretend like it's not there. You know, and I just feel like...
Oh, it's here in California.
Yeah.
It's not hiding.
But I feel like people just kind of pretend like, oh well, no, that's not real. It doesn't happen to me.
Man, that's a thing.
So, but again, like I said, and it goes back to the COVID, and that's what to me is COVID's real because like, and I've lived it in multiple states, in multiple cities. I mean, yeah, I've been in California the whole time, and I was in New York right before everything kicks up a notch. But it's, I don't know.
So where are you at now, having taken care of a bunch of COVID patients, and what's next for you? What do you think about the whole thing?
Man, honestly, the saddest part of this whole thing right now is that now that my contract is up and I'm gonna take a little break from nursing for this summer because as a traveler, we're getting a lot of travel contract canceled because again, it goes back to hospitals are trying to budget and staff, but they don't have the staff and the budget, and so there a lot of termination, a lot of things are changing. You have COVID increase and COVID decrease. You have a flat plateau, and then you have like a little spark here and there. So it's kind of all over the place. And so that's affecting a lot of travelers. So a lot of travelers are being canceled, which means that, because again, like I mentioned at the beginning, most travel contract, you sign a contract for either 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, however long you want.
Yeah.
And usually you work that entire time. But if a hospital goes through changes where they were expecting a large COVID number and they didn't get it, or they're expecting a large sick population and they didn't get it, well, they don't have need for you at that time because they have staff that.
So you kind of get.
So you kind of
like, oh, your contract gets ended.
Contract get ended at any time,
Yeah.
and so then you have to go and get a new contract, and then the same thing could happen. So now you're anticipating because right now again
you're a little bit at risk of not having work. But have you? And you said you've done this 6 years. Have you ever really had a period where you couldn't get travel work? I feel like there's such a demand and shortage for nurses that's still not.
Yeah, I've always had ability to work. This is like usually in the summer things slow down because most people don't do surgeries in the summer or whatever normally. And with this COVID thing, with all the elective surgery, which is surgery you choose to have, are now decreasing. Your ability to work in the summer is a little bit harder. But in the spring, in the fall, in the winter, things open back up. Usually in the summer, I usually take off. My wife and I usually take off a couple of months in the summer and do fun things and kind of because you don't want to work.
What are you going to do next? And did your wife come with you on this trip?
No, she did not come to this LA trip just because she felt like she didn't know it was going to last long. And she was right. I mean, it didn't last too long.
Is she working back in?
No, she's at home right now. She's
in Nashville.
She's actually in New York. We're hanging out with one of our friends in New York.
Okay.
But the whole problem is so our plan is we usually do music festival in the summer. So we work
not this year.
Not this year. One of the music festivals we usually go to is now there's a question mark. They moved it to September, but
which one do you like to go to?
Bonnaroo Music Festival in Manchester, Tennessee.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's pretty nice festival out
there.
I
went to the Memphis Music Festival a couple of yeyears ago. That was a lot
Memphis
of fun.
in May? Or did you do a different one?
I think it was May. I don't remember. I think it was.
Yeah. But yeah, so we've been doing that for the past 7 years. We have a little group that we all meet at our house in Nashville, and we go. It usually runs June 11th to June 15th, but they pushed it back to September. And now, like a lot of people are still scared.
Yeah, I don't know about September. Do you think we're ever going to have these festivals again?
Not because Bonnaroo. The reason why Bonnaroo is going to be so it's the worst festival for COVID because in Bonnaroo, their thing is like high fives, shaking hands, that's like a whole thing, like touching, sharing stuff. It's like that's
very good human things normally, but then also a way for this virus.
Those things are gonna. So I don't know how they're gonna pull that off. So, but that's something we normally do. We usually travel outside the country. A year ago, and like I said, I've been to multiple different countries, and I spent like months there, and just kind of learning the culture and doing things.
So what are you gonna do coming up? I hope you have a little time off. You've worked so hard and done a good job.
Yeah, no, actually, I'm gonna take some time off. I'm gonna go to Michigan. But Buddy lives out in Wyandotte, Michigan. He lives out there. He's newlywed, and so I'm gonna try to go out there and get a Airbnb and kind of chill out with him. And we're gonna go down to the UP. I guess like the peninsula out there.
Upper Peninsula.
Yeah, and then you can like do some sand skiing and fishing and hanging out. So that's something we plan.
I think it's great for people to hear like you do incredible things as a nurse in the ICU, and then you have a balanced life and you take time off. And it's nice to hear that travel nursing affords you those opportunities.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, it does, and it's a good gig. And I can't go home to see my parents because again, like I mentioned, my parents are a little bit older, and so my goal was to self-quarantine myself for 2 weeks, from when I'm done. So self
Do you
quarantine.
think you've had it? Do you think you've had COVID?
I think so. I've never been tested.
I think
so.
I've had it too, and I can't prove it,
so.
but I feel like I've had it.
I think if I get my antibodies tested, I think I do.
Yeah.
I read an article actually. They're doing a research. I think it's like one of these hospitals around here, and they're doing a research on like people who have the VCG vaccine. Something you should look into. They were saying that if you have the VCG vaccine, you're most likely less than 60 or 7% of getting it, because.
So that you think there's some protection to that TB vaccine?
One of the VCG, it's not enough. That's like the malaria, right?
BCG is for tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's common that Mexicans and Central South Americans have had
Yeah,
it.
because the reason I know because a bunch of Filipino nurses that I've worked with mentioned that they're part of this research, and the research is checking it because I guess they had to have it before they come to the U.S. And so
That's interesting.
They're doing pretty. So I don't know, but so I can't really go see my parents. So I was going to like self quarantine.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna go see my parents for a couple of weeks. Then I was gonna go to Michigan.
Good for you.
So I'm gonna take the rest of the summer off. So probably start looking for another job in September or something like that.
All right, let me ask you a couple. Let's talk about football again.
All right.
Because I played high school football. So what position did you play again?
Let's went to the good stuff. I played running back.
Fullback, tailback,
No, I was actually a true power eye running back. At high school, we ran the veer.
Yeah,
veer
did
offense.
you? Yeah. Some option.
Yeah. That was good. I was good at that. And then in college, we ran the power, and then we switched to the spread. I wasn't really good in the spread because I couldn't catch.
So hang on. So you what was your in high school? What was your favorite play?
Veer 18 or 19, which is a pitch option. So the quarterback. So if you know about football, you have so the quarterback attacks that end on the right or left side. So if it's 19, it's on the left. If it's 18, it's on the right. He attacks the end. If the end bites the quarterback, he pitches
to you.
If the end ticks the running back, the quarterback keeps. And usually I had speed.
Why did you like that? Because you were fast.
I had speed then,
the ball
and I can outrun any defensive end to the corner, and then it's just 1-on-1 with the DB. And most DBs don't like contact, and so it's just like, if you can outpass them. Deion
Sanders being the best example of that. Richard Sherman is also a nice example of that.
Yeah. So you just and then it's just a foot race.
So you were an offensive guy. You were
Yeah. I played a little bit of defense too, but I wasn't really.
I played receiver in high school. I think outside linebacker is one of the most fun positions on the field to play. I think halfback's pretty fun.
Yeah.
If you've got an arm, there might not be anything better than a quarterback.
You think so?
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I don't know
Directing traffic.
Yeah, but if you have a pretty terrible line, usually your day you spend a lot of your time on your back.
No, that's true. That's not fun.
See, like a running back, you kind of see what's coming at you.
I'm talking about beach football now.
That's what I'm saying. But beach football.
Throwing the ball.
Yeah. But if you're playing in a game, you want to be able to protect yourself. You want to be able to have the vision to see what's coming at you. As a running back, there's never a time where you don't see someone's coming at you, unless they run like one of those string plays where your back is turned.
So what was it like? What was D1 like? Like, tell people like me that have no idea. Was it like super competitive and crazy? Was it like, are you like, oh, I've got brain damage because I played, it was so hard? Like, what was that like?
No, honestly, I didn't play as much, to be honest. Because at the end of the day, man.
Where did you go first? You told me you went to Baylor and then Arkansas?
Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, man, it's more like when you get to that level, everybody is good.
Yeah.
Right? The kids who play, they weren't like the bench warmer in high school. They were all the top players from there.
Everybody was the best. Yeah.
So when you get to that level, it's more of a who brought you in, right? Like if you get recruited by a running back coach and you're a running back, well, that coach is going to show you some love, right? Because he brought you in. But if you were out of school and your running back coach brought you in, but then he happened to go to a different school for better opportunity, and you stay at that school, there are some times where you don't get as much love because the guy doesn't.
That's interesting.
Yeah, the guy doesn't really know you as well, and so you get a lot of great athletes kind of get left by the wayside. It's just and then up to you to decide if you want to follow that guy or you want to stay and finish out.
It kind of makes like the walk-ons an even better story.
Yeah,
it's even harder to walk on.
Absolutely. Walk-ons are they're hard to get on, but once you get on, you have to be phenomenal. Because there are a lot of guys who are phenomenal in high school, or a lot of guys who peaked later. Right, you peaked in college your freshman year, and so you walked on because you weren't as great in high school, but you got to college and you gained.
You got better.
You got better, and now they're like, oh wow, we missed that kid. There are a lot of good athletes getting missed all the time. I mean, think about Jerry Rice went to like what is it? HBCU, right? It's like, so to me, I would say the chances of
Tom Brady. I mean, he went to Michigan.
Yeah.
But still, he
Yeah.
didn't. Arguably, he would. I forget when he was drafted. He was drafted like
sixth round. So
way late.
yeah, I believe that like if you get into a system where showcase your skill set, you do great. My skill set wasn't a spread offense, right? And so I didn't do as well.
So that's when things changed for you.
Yeah.
Now, you were on the same team as RG3, who won a Heisman.
Yeah, it was RG3 freshman year. Yeah, that was the year. I transferred that fall.
What was he like?
From my encounter with him, he's a nice fellow, and then I talked to him. You know, like I said, he was there. He's more of a track star when he first got there.
Yeah.
But he wasn't. He was very quiet. Didn't really.
It's not like you're like, oh man, that guy's gonna win the Heisman one day.
Yeah, no, he wasn't like in your face like I'm great. You know.
Yeah.
I have some buddies that play at Florida.
Willie Beamer.
Yeah, I have some buddies that play at Florida back when Cam Newton was a freshman there.
Yeah.
And you know, because Cam Newton played at Florida before he got transferred to Blaine College. Yeah.
And then he ended up at Auburn.
On Auburn, yeah.
Oh, that's right. He was a transfer to Auburn. He
Yeah.
played there for a couple years, right?
Yeah,
Junior and
Played
senior.
at Auburn 2 years, yeah. He
Yeah,
came from
that's what I
Blaine
thought.
Junior College after he came from Florida. And
That's
my
crazy.
buddy said that he was just like, he walked down the hall and just like in your face, like, I'm the best. I'm gonna be a Heisman Trophy winner.
Really?
Yeah.
He had the swag, and he
Yeah.
was right.
Yeah.
He was a great college quarterback.
So, but RG wasn't like that, man. He was more of like quiet.
Just a quiet
Yeah,
track.
and like we didn't interact much, but again, I wasn't there long enough. But yeah, I didn't hear anything, bad about him or nothing.
This has been a great. It's been a great interview.
Yeah.
Is there anything? Did we miss anything? I got another question for you, but I do want to say, thank you for your service. You guys are, as a nurse, you're on the front lines more than we are. As a doc, going in and out of that room all the time, and I really admire that. Your whole profession, but you as well. So I think we really do owe you guys a gratitude. Thank you for what you do. It's a really, really cool thing. Thanks for this interview. This has been great, man.
Yeah, no, man. Like I said, I appreciate it. I think that getting the message out there is a good thing. Especially from a doctor perspective, who's also on the front line of it and doing it. Like my sister-in-law is also a doctor. She's out in Portland, Oregon, and so, but she's she's an intensivist, but I don't know exactly her. That we talk about like how's your hospital is more of like on the superficial level. I don't try to kind of figure out what's going on, but I think like just having someone who knows the medical process about it and then talking about like what they see on their end and so yeah. It's a good thing.
Okay, let me ask you one more question. You're from Texas. You were a D1 college football player, and you got into nursing because of your wife.
Yeah.
How is it to be a male nurse? How is it to be a Texan, a man Texan nurse?
Man, I always laugh about this with buddies of mine. I always tell them they're like, so, but when I first started nursing, people always thought like,
You're a very manly guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People always thought like male nurses were, like, I mean, what's the proper term for it? Male nurses were not like you have to either be part of like the LGBT community to be a male nurse. And so you get to places and people are like, oh, I was like, no, I'm not. I said, there's a lot of guys in nursing who are not. And matter of fact, I think 2 to 3 or 5% of nurses are male nurses. We need more male nursing, and like especially a male nursing who is, who can lift and push, and because all these patients, again, a lot of issues like pulling and tugging and moving patients, right? You learn all these proper mechanics, but
Some
still
physical stuff.
But if you have like a 5'2", 130-pound soaking wet girl trying to pull a 300-pound guy, no matter what body mechanics she learned, it's still difficult, right? So you get these male guys who also come out. It's good to have male on the unit, and nurses out there would know, they help with kind of things like that. But it also help with unruly patients. A lot of time, unruly patients tend to be more aggressive and agitated towards female. And then when a guy walks in, there's some, okay, well, maybe, and then they end up, which is not right, but so that kind of aspect of it. And you're needed. I've never been on a unit as a male nurse, or haven't been appreciated about the female nurses. They love having male nurses. So if you're a male out there and you're thinking about a profession that you want to be in, like nursing is great. You work 3 days a week. You can work more if you want, and you have time to do everything you want to do.
Sounds like it's been great for you for so many ways.
Yeah, and and you're needed, and you get preferential treatment in a sense, like especially if you apply to schools and you get better, out because they're like, oh, well, we need more male in the field.
Oh, I see. Kind of, you get a little competitive advantage being.
They need more male in the field.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, and your return on your investment is great because there's a lot of ways you can do nursing without going to big name schools, where you can definitely you don't have to go in debt to be a nurse. You can do nursing without going into debt. And I tell people all the time, there's not a lot of professions you can make over $200,000 a year and not go into crazy debt.
God, nurses do. You guys do so well in California.
Yeah, especially in California, which is, but again, that's what I'm saying. It's like, if you don't want to, like, you're right about, like, the nurses makes a lot of money in California, but, like, sometimes, you do nursing because you want to see, like, you go to Hawaii. Like, not many jobs you just go to, you can get up and go to Hawaii today if you wanted to and just work there for 3-4 months at a time.
You're kind of killing me with all this. It makes me want to travel. It does.
Yeah.
Teddy, thanks for coming on this show. Do you want people to follow you? Do you have any call to action for them? Where can people find you, or are you just?
No. I don't have any call to action or nothing. I'm like my own person on Instagram and things like that, but I don't want people to follow me or nothing.
Fair enough.
I just want people to, if anything, I'll leave people with is just tell your healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, environmental services, people who work in the kitchen, people who mop the floor, every aspect of hospital, tell them thank you and know that, that they're going through things and just be there for them. I want everybody to love each other, and that's all we can do. That's all we can do.
You're awesome, man.
So
thank you for doing this. And thank you for listening. This thing is going to live on all of the channels and YouTube and Facebook, the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with me, Dr. Larry Burchett, on Twitter, Instagram. If you have questions, thank you again for listening. Stay safe. Stay sane. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.